Looking at Ukrainian crisis, it's hard to grasp. How did it come to this? Did they really want it? Maybe it's all Putin? Why peace candidate election triumph was followed by war? Ukrainian establishment could leave that path. Just imagine, men aren't grabbed into minivans, no power supply schedules, government controls Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. There were options to make a deal with Russia, and any of those would be better than what we finally got. But there is another thing. Why both Poroshenko and Zelensky failed to comply with Minsk Accords?
Я незадоволений всіма пунктами.
Why Zelensky discarded Istanbul? What keeps them from negotiations now? Maybe the West prevents it? Alas, it's all worse. Much worse. The roots lies in totalitarianism.
Якщо ти мобілізаційного віку, згідно українського закону, ти маєш бути в Україні. І це факт. І далі ти будеш воювати або не воювати, ти будеш працювати. Тому що я наводив цей приклад вже. В Україні не можна просто дихати повітря.
Я, пошел боку, я буду служить в вооруженных силах України.
But what is totalitarianism? In modern media it's favorite liberal boogie.
Все должны зиговать.
Yep, that evil scene you always hear when somebody condemns USSR or posting memes about Orwell's 1984. But our story is not about media cliches or fantasy books. It's about today's practice.
Вічна слава героїв! А ви двоє на коліна поїдете в цій машині. На коліна! На коліна перед героєм!
Totalitarian society soaked with ideology. It worm in ads, education, seeping communication, infiltrating your thoughts, even your dream. Your credit card in the banking app gets new Russian worship skin. Parrot shouts Heil Ukraine. Your mom sends memes about Shark and demands. Ideology is being stuffed everywhere, and it can't be avoided. You don't just hear a boring agenda on TV. You'll feel it on your skin, with the boot imprint on your face. They'll get you for any wrong move, force you to agree to the dominant point of view, and kill you if you struggle against. You just can't be yourself here. Either go with the flow, or become an outcast. Stay home, hide, or escape from the country.
Хлопці з Азову прийшли до любителя руського міра, Київстонера. Альберт! Слава Росії, Альберт! Это мы.
But there is one thing not being told by the liberals. The essential trait of the real totalitarianism is that all society participates in this nightmare. In all those horrible pictures of totalitarianism, which been painted when discussing North Korea or that Orwell's book, they always use those dark tints to draw a feeling of fear. But that's a delusion. No, it's not the state who oppresses poor citizens. It's the citizens who are oppressing themselves. They are truly enjoying it. Yes, you heard me right. This horrible society can be enjoyed. You may wallow in it, paddle in it, drink it to an end. Everything is just fine, unless you're not the one who is visited. How so? Well, everyone here must tell a friend from foe. Everyone obliged to become a part of the great struggle, at the sight of light, of course. Embrace the system, and everything is simple and comprehensive, you'll not even notice it. That explains system's name. It's total. Fish is unaware of living in the water. Unlike other systems, totalitarianism is not just forcing you to behave correctly. Nope. It dictates the margins you are looking through at the world. Questions that you are allowed to ask. It dictates the narrative. After all, answer for any wrong question will be also wrong. Looking at Ukraine, this can be easily seen. Patriots, nationalists, volunteers are heroes. Separatists and orcs are foes. And the other conflicts are unthinkable in this society. But what is more important, the society don't and can't have any other enemies. Western corporations and their unbearable bonded loans, Ukrainian officials who benefits from this war, nationalists and volunteers whose existence becomes needless after peace treaty. Kidding, right? These questions can be raised here. When you say Zelia is a goof, you are not breaking common narrative, you are enforcing it. In society obliging everyone to ask himself, have you done everything for 1991 borders, president has to dedicate as the others. Demand that. As he's a part of the system too, just like you are. You are a fuel and he's a stalker. Is the president neglecting it? Demand another one. Put him to work, lazy bastard. Wait, what? What Pokrovsk? Ah! But it's the same in Russia. Or is not? There is no manhunt raging on the Russian streets. no language patrols, but there are open borders. And other interesting things doesn't exist here. But that's all not so important. The key difference, in Russia you may just don't care. Cut yourself from the war topic and devote yourself to your family. Or educate. Dive into your job. Some bloggers demanding hysterically utter dedication from the Russian society, raging that the people are forgetting our boys in trenches. But their very resentment is the best proof that Russians may easily detach themselves from the politics. Just turn off your TV and unsubscribe from politics channels at YouTube and Telegram, and you'll never be reminded that you must devote, you must donate, and that's the main difference.
Заїжджайте на око, заправляйте повний бак пульсом помсти. І з кожного літра 1 гривня летить на пульстрони для ДШВ.
You can't establish totalitarianism just with a snap of the fingers, by issuing decree, law, or order. It takes years. It cultivates with purpose, raising new generations in kindergartens, schools, creating national myth, imprinting inferiority complex, so that every child would know that they won, ate their porridge. Sometimes they say that Russia and Ukraine are the same, cause both states will get US kicked for opposing it. Truly no one would be happy to get himself in jail and experience the truth of expression. The state is an organization of violence. But that comparison has a problem.
У тебя 2 ноги, у обезьяны 2 ноги, ты обезьяна. Можно по-другому. У свиньи 2 глаза, у тебя 2 глаза, ты свинья.
Any state, especially when in conflict, strives to defend itself. However, Russian and Ukrainian approaches are dramatically different. In Ukraine you will be bashed with nightstick, not by the state, but by the society. In Russia, persecution measures are coming by the law enforcement and other state bodies. You might be noticed, accused, trialed, and then relieved from charges or jailed. Or pardoned, depending on circumstances and the official's goodwill. What about Ukraine? No one will bother with that boring stuff. You'll just be visited by patriots.
Героям слава! Слава нації! Україна!
But the most important, even ordinary, non-radical people around you will put a pressure. Because you are outside of margin. You are strange, asking strange, wrong questions. Are you a patriot or what? Even the most worthless scum, feeling its holy righteousness, may attack you. And it leads to all-out lynch trial. In fact, the difference is simple. There is no person in Ukraine able to question official agenda. There is just no one to ask right questions. In Russia, that's all much more liberal. Let's take my favorite leftist YouTube channels. Simple numbers, almost 500,000 subscribers, all in Russia.
24 февраля 2022 года президент объявил о начале специальной военной операции. И с тех пор на этом канале вышло множество роликов, объясняющих истинные материальные причины этого глубоко империалистического конфликта. Да, дело вовсе не в защите интересов русского языка, абстрактного русского мира или даже русской культуры. Дело в коммерческих аппетитах российских транснациональных корпораций.
Stormbringer, audience of 300,000.
Теряя былые позиции и статус, этот режим не нашел ничего лучше попытки восстановить их 3-дневным маршем на Киев с обязательным парадом на Крещатике.
Author Mr. Rudoy returned to Russia after a long roaming from Kazakhstan to France. Now arranging left conferences. Семен, 800,000 subscribers.
Честной, солидарной сплоченности внутри антиимпериалистического движения невозможно, потому что получается, что вы выступаете за то, чтобы был свергнут Зеленский, но на собственный двор, на собственных буржуев и на собственных, так сказать, кровопийц вы предпочли бы закрыть глаза, потому что здесь у нас классовая борьба там, или здесь у них там во Франции, в Италии, где угодно, помогай мне, Изоб, у них все отсутствует.
Living in Moscow suburb, chasing goats on his bike.
Тут реальная жизнь, видите, дорога.
And Remy Meissner is still free with his 100,000 audience.
Чтобы не брать грех на душу. В марксистском понимании.
В марксистском понимании есть понимание греха?
Да.
Here's them, free, alive and kicking. Worst they've got, petty penalties and foreign agent status. It's unpleasant, but incomparable with Ukraine. Unless those people doesn't call the crowd for unrest and not trying to infiltrate the system doesn't bother, and leaving them be. Think about that, why there is no one in Ukraine like Semin or Rudoy? Why there is no even remotely public leftist who appeals proletariat to unite and stop the war at all cost? Is there no pretty reasons creating such people? Seems like there is. Without favor, it's all getting worse. But there must be someone who doesn't call for the war until the last Ukrainian. Unless there is no chance that such people may appear in Ukraine. Everything has been smothered initially. And as it was said before, asking wrong questions makes you criminal at once. I'm not saying that there is no people inside Ukraine who's opposing this power. Ukraine even has its communists, but they are all on the ground, hiding behind aliases. Russian state is everywhere, its presence cannot be unnoticed. It manifests itself in different ways, with infrastructure development, construction, social sector, benefits or requirements, and restrictions. Ukraine is totally opposite. Most of its road network were abandoned right after USSR collapse or patched by Turkish contractors. None of significant infrastructure projects were accomplished without control of EBRD or some other Western overseer.
Европейский банк реконструкции и развития выработал программу, в рамках которой мы предполагаем инвестиции в Украину в размере приблизительно 3 миллиардов евро. Главный акцент этих усилий делается на поддержке экономики страны, торговли, энергетической безопасности и жизненно важной инфраструктуры.
Eventually it led to acceptance of the fact that the state is unable to supervise and control its own activities, and to the creating the network of supervision councils with foreign experts, anti-corruption bodies included. Even loyal Western sources branded Ukraine as a failed state, which means it looks like you guys screwed up. By the end of the 90s, Ukrainian and Russian societies went on different paths. Russian state regained strength. It suppressed, settled down or made deals with regional elites. Ukraine became feeble. The further, the weaker. This weakness even became a sort of feature after Euromaidan. Like, hell yeah, it's so European, let anyone call the shots except the state. Sounds delirious, I understand, but after all it appeared that a feeble state is the best ground for totalitarianism. To comprehend the process, let's go back to 2014.
35 погибших. Последние данные Минздрава. Еще несколько часов назад их было 26. Счет раненым идет на сотни.
Завтра до 10-ї години він має піти геть!
Я делал все для того, чтобы в стране не было кровопролития.
В Донецке вооруженные сепаратисты вошли в горсовет. Под Краматорском неизвестные в камуфляже захватили боевые машины десанта, которые через некоторое время свободно разъезжали по улицам Славянска.
На півночі Донецької области розпочалась антитеррористичная операция.
Противостояние на юго-востоке Украины почти переходит в гражданскую войну. Эта напряженная ситуация окажет самое значительное влияние на исход выборов и референдумов 11 мая.
Тогда так называемые ополченцы поставили второй уже ультиматум сдаться до 6 часов утра, а в противном случае все военные, окруженные в Иловайском котле, будут уничтожены.
The year of an unspeakable disaster. Fatal chain of events collapsed flimsy state, the cup of February 22nd, runaway Crimea, and finally ATO. The whole turmoil was chaotic. At February 2014, a new Kiev regime was lost and confused, faced grave lack of support. A new loyal army, police, local authorities were shaping on a rush. Sometimes it was reduced to complete absurd. At the very beginning, Turchinov's office planned to neutralize all right sector Nazis, main allies in taking power. A right sector coordinator at West Ukraine, known as Sashko Billy, was murdered at March 24th.
Право слідчого. Руку! Я сказав руку, бо за душу. Слухай, тварь.
And Internal Affairs claimed it was a suicide. But then it was recognized as encounter killing.
Сам при падении, когда шла борьба, он делал беспорядочные выстрелы, в том числе пострадал смертельно.
And that wasn't the only case of applying pressure on nationalists.
Це гвинтівки, хлопці, що це таке у вас? Розкажіть. Це наш труби, музикальні інструменти.
It had sense. Nazis were making too much trouble, battering and maiming anti-Maidan members outside Cherkasy. Storming Bastion Club in Kharkov, defilling it with swastikas. Putting Nazis in line was the most obvious and expected move. Infantile morons of Ukraine's patriots and Bandera's trident spooked half of the country, which wasn't happy with the new regime at the first place. To preserve the state, it was essential to present that the law and order still means something. But new regime was unable to accomplish that. Lack of time. Crimea joined Russia and shortly Donbas war broke out. Separatists, disloyal to new regime citizens, became its bigger threat. They had to be dealt with, and fast. And having no other means than Nazis, well, beggars can't be choosers. Army and law enforcement deserted in great numbers and joined Donbas militia. State service under Yanukovych was sacked, and now dubious new regime, whose orders to follow today to avoid persecution tomorrow. So at the time law enforcement bodies disregarded new office.
Вот тут я хочу акцентировать. В тот момент у меня не было никаких гарантий, что харьковские милицейские силы адекватны к подчинению. Я всегда учитывал, что они могут не выполнить команду, как, в общем-то, и вышло с харьковским Беркутом. когда той же ночью, в один из решающих моментов, я дал им команду выступить и блокировать здание, а они ехали 3 часа.
How to restore state control and confirm legitimacy? Somehow they took power. What about ex-sidekicks to the rescue? Who were they, by the way? Let's see. Well, it'll do. Nazi state is a state too. Sort of. Nazis put in abandoned official slots, formed the crotch of the new regime. But there was a downside. And this downside revealed in all its glory across the half of the country by May. Patronized by Ukrainian oligarchs, major escalation of violence and murder steamrolled across the southwest.
Нам не нужна Россия, у нас уже есть страна, а нашу страну разваливать не надо. Они это здание не строили, и теперь из-за них придется его сжечь вместе с ними, потому что они пришли к нам с мечом на Соборную площадь.
People spoken by politicians about Banderites and Nazis at every election race got a perfect confirmation of all of their fears. New regime in Kiev sent black shirts to disperse anti-Maidan of Odessa quickly, and then hypocritically pretended that no one responsible for up to 50 people were burned alive. Next issue, People's Militia of Mariupol. Let's see who's nearby to solve it. Ace of Nazis. They entered the city, shot several civilians, burned police building, as they wasn't responsible for anything. Flogged their desk and retreated. Total failure. And things like that were happening through all 2014. Got problems? Send Nazis.
Нас заебала ваша проститутская политика. Нас заебала, что убивают, похищают, бесчинствуют здесь люди под вывесками российских флагов. Кто забыл присягу на верность Украине?
Ukrainian statehood was faltering enough already, and bringing Nazis in led to its utter breakdown. But this policy still was effective. Regime won some time and arranged elections. Poroshenko became a president. Sort of people's choice, not Maidan swindler. Russia offered a deal to settle the conflict at the east. Перемога. И once we are told that the regime will be reformed, settle the people, make some deals, and then nothing. How come? It seemed everything was going to settle and calm down. Simple. Patriotic civil society and volunteer battalions never went away. All those people entrenched themselves deep inside security services and law enforcement. Attempt to disperse or prosecute them could be fatal for totalitarian Ukrainian state. How did it look? Let's take Avakov, Internal Affairs Minister, appointed right after Maidan coup. This FSM Azeri-Armenian crook was associated with Social Nationalist Assembly to snatch enterprises and factories in Kharkov. Never a flaming Nazi himself, but having the Nazi friends is so nice for business. Scheme perfectly worked in Russia as well in 90s and early 2000s. And how fortunate, old acquaintances became so handy. As Avakov took an office, his loyal black-shirt friends poured wherever possible. Brightest example could be Vadim Troyan, ace of veteran since his membership at Patriot of Ukraine. Avakov appointed him as head deputy of National Police of Ukraine and head of police force in Kiev region. Black shirts, who snitched that way inside security forces, immediately surrounded themselves with their radical friends at lower positions. Maybe Avakov was an idiot? No, Security Service of Ukraine under Nalyvaichenko undergone the same staff renewal. The only difference were that, unlike Internal Affairs, which recruited Ace of Nazis, SBU preferred Nazis from C14, which name is kinda self-explanatory. C14 murderers of opposition writer Olесь Buzina got themselves some neat shares. A member of Nabu Public Council, head of the Ministry of Veterans. Murderers are serving at Anti-Corruption Bureau Council and Veteran Ministry, just FSM. They even never covered it. Head of C14, Yevgen Karas, was declaring that we cooperate with SBU only when chasing separatists, and the ex-SBU officials was sharing this.
Завжди була ідея фікс взяти такий негласний контроль над будь-якою громадською організацією, яка має там у собі в своїй структурі силовий блок. СБУ на певних етапах залучала на своїх, там, скажімо, оперативних контактах, тобто знаходили певні точки зору спільні з керівниками Сі-14 і направляли їх на вирішення певних завдань, наприклад, там пошук, там виявлення сепаратистів, яких, наприклад, СБУ в силу певних причин законодавчих не може, наприклад, там затримати.
Once Avakov stated that we suddenly discovered the cooperation of security service and ultra-right radicals of C-14, which means, damn, SBU stole our trick. But not only security service applied Avakov's scheme for themselves. In 2017, C14 members were recruited into the just created Municipal Sentinels. This organization had to assist patrol police. In 2019 it was reformed into Municipal Guard, now public service structure under Kyiv City Council. It allowed Mayor Klitschko to raid property and real estate within Kyiv more efficiently with Municipal Guard's Starmers.
Ну, справа в тому, що якщо це журналісти від Шарія були, то я вважаю, що це не люди. Виключно люди можуть отримати посвідчення журналіста. Собака ж не може отримати посвідчення журналіста. Тому якщо ця людина працює на Шарія, для мене це не людина.
That's the horrible point. Obviously those corrupted crooks like Avakov, Danilov or Filatov never were believers in Nazi garbage. But the overall situation made black shirts the most convenient and handy tool. Some used it to reinforce their power, some to fight opponents, some just tried to steal as much as possible. That's how a synthesis of national security services and Nazi civil society had happened, bypassing the parliament by the way. Nationalist party's election results wasn't revealing the scale of Nazi's influence to the society, which was favorite point of liberals and Western media. Nationalist has no power in Ukraine, look at their percent, look! But in reality Nazi influence was revealing itself by the ability to terror, mutilate, kill, bypassing the law. Civil society Ukrainian style, what else could be expected? That's how Peacemaker website was created, with the direct assistance of Internal Affairs. Site contained traitors' personal data and addresses. All those who disagreed with the new Ukrainian order had been listed.
Точно знать, кто перед вами, законопослушный человек или тот, кто в 2014-15 году кричал на митингах «Путин, введи войска и Крым наш». А дальше вы сами для себя примите решение, что делать. Звонить в СБУ или полицию, отказаться от делового сотрудничества с этим человеком или попытаться убедить его в том, что он стал жертвой антиукраинской пропаганды.
Peacekeeper had no legal force, it was illegal itself. But its database was checked when leaving or entering the country. Banks were recommended to consider it, and patriots struggling to defend Ukraine got themselves a nice tool to track you down, or your family. People who got themselves into the database could be attacked and murdered. Assisted by SBU, Nazis of C14 killed recently listed opposition writer Olесь Buzina and Regents Party ex-member Oleg Kalashnikov. Such petty purges didn't have the direct support of the state, everything was done by the civil society. But if Nazis got themselves to the trial dock, they were just released. Or were releasing themselves, vandalizing courtrooms. That's how society's normality was shifting. State tried to keep its hands clean, just reminded to the people that separatists are not really humans. And if you got someone who allowed himself to commit a thought crime, dared to ask what the hell is going on, then he is a domestic separatist, public enemy. Education media were striving to bring that at everyone's attention.
Мы ввели такое понятие, как бытовой сепаратизм, постарались донести, что мы подразумеваем под этим, постарались сфокусировать внимание общественности на том, что такие действия являются уголовно наказуемыми.
And then, when another outrageous practice became common, it was supported by state as a law. The communists, for example, went underground, they were killed and mutilated at Maidan, and it was told that this is normal. And it worked. Later, communist symbols were banned. Situation when public enemies are being attacked by Nazis here and there wasn't something abnormal anymore for the Ukrainian society. For example, since 2014, Mikhail Kononovich, a communist, was battered by the Nazis 47 times. 47 times. How the hell he survived that? Ukraine was swarmed and consumed by the Nazi organizations and groups. Nazis gained abandoned Soviet factories, establishing their bases and headquarters, got gyms, rehab centers, and youth camps replacing the state. And it was supported by the society. Hey, look, state is impotent and those guys are doing something. Fighting for ecology, against illegal housing. State officials suck. This plague started to spread beyond Ukraine. Across the world, wide ultra-right recruiting and training network was established.
Спустя несколько недель Робин, швед, которого мы встретили на том фестивале, написал мне, что он едет на фронт, чтобы присоединиться к битве.
Black shirt groups kept gaining strength, wagging the state dog. Nationalists checked their boundaries with their benefactors, and the state was backing off what it could do. Again and again officials just preferred not to get involved and didn't prevent the Nazis.
Є дуже величезна проблема, що більша частина складу депутатів Верховної Ради їх попросту боїться. Боїться фізичних нападів, боїться з того, що у людей будуть проблеми. будуть напади на члени родин, будуть...
Until 2019, Poroshenko, along with the cabinet, tried to keep balance. Sometimes he greased Nazis, sometimes pressed a little.
Розгон Азова, взагалі просто розгон по міліцейським підрозділам, була одною з умов пропозицій на дорожній мапі трьох партій, які створювали коаліцію. І якщо б, наприклад, не суспільний тиск, якщо б не було, наприклад, у нас організацій, національного корпусу і так далі, повірте, вони це однозначно б доробили.
For example, once volunteer battalions were finally subordinated under the Ministry of Defense, although volunteers were rather unhappy. This policy allowed Poroshenko to keep informal connections with Russia via oligarchs like Medvedchuk and Kurchenko affiliated with Russian establishment. But he couldn't have a cake and eat it too. Conflict planted in 2014 was rooting deeper and deeper. Nazi ranks grew, government had to back them, since was unable neither to confront them nor to solve anything without them. Eventually, Poroshenko's term was about to end. It's time to figure what to sell to the people at the upcoming race. People want peace, but state bodies crawling with the Nazis. What to do?
Добрый вечер, друзья. Совсем скоро мы встретим Новый год и продолжим вечерний квартал.
For the voters, Zelensky presented himself as a chance for deliverance, promising to solve the conflict. Total victory as a result, and unlimited carte blanche from the people. So many opportunities. Zelensky led the country and boosted the Nazis. Solved the balance issue Ukrainian way. In 2019, Zelensky takes the office perfectly using overall hatred to Poroshenko. Comedian managed to sell his flaws as advantages. What? No experience, no team? So he's not affiliated with anyone and wouldn't steal? My man. Zelensky mocked Ukrainian politics for 20 years. His Block 95 show would never last that long in Russia.
Чего нет? Может, мне кто-то анекдот рассказал? Кто тебе анекдот рассказал? Юморист твой? Что за юморист, а? Юморист твой, который всех уже смешил. А слуга народа? Да. Ну? Ты не боишься, что он такой честный придет и посадит тебя? Куда? В рассмеши комика он меня посадит.
Split of elites allowed him mock all sides of political power play without fear. Someone would always back his project. It wouldn't work in Russia, where power is consolidated. Zelensky was a decent comedian, some of Block 95 scenes looks nice even now.
Прошу голосувати, будь ласка. Українці краще всі. Одноголосно вітаю.
Selling his satire, Zelensky gained points both among his benefactors and among the people, which granted him unique position. He was well known for all classes. Besides, he was outside politician class and never held any responsibility. And now, victory, inauguration. As usual, there is no idea what to expect from populist politician. Everybody was hoping for something on their own.
Он пока себя никак не проявил. А то, что мы видим, противоречивые высказывания. Поживем, увидим, посмотрим.
Zelensky made a lot of promises during his inauguration speech.
Наступні 5 років я зроблю все, українці, щоб ви не плакали. Дякую.
Perhaps in some other country such person could achieve something. But Zelensky hadn't become a president of some other country. He became the president of Ukraine. Oh god. Even genius would have a little chance to solve piling problems, let alone Zelensky. He was unaware even about the governing basics, and was repeatedly criticized by Poroshenko for this. Unlike Zelensky, Poroshenko was an old hat in politics intrigues. What to say, Poroch founded Legion's party with Yanukovych, then ditched everyone, sided with Maidan and overthrew his old gang. Being a weak politician, Zelensky could be backed by his team, but he didn't have one. So he was surrounded by the cream de la cream of civil society, right from the start of the election race. Not by Nazis, but by another F-some people, the Sorosites.
А это вот вообще вот такая вот бледная, губы не накрашенные, ничего не накрашенные, вот такие вот стандартные брови, стандартная прическа такая вот, чтобы хвостик завернуть, видно было бы, чтобы все-таки пол, как бы, ну, потому что на Украине это еще дает определенные преференции. Во всем остальном ничего, ни украшений, ничего. Вот и футболка еще вот такая вот мешковатая, безликая. Потому что вот просто слуга Сороса, в общем-то. Именно юнит номер такой-то.
For instance, cabinet management was taken by Alexei Goncharuk, ex-manager of non-commercial Better Regulation Delivery Office, funded by foreign governments. Goncharuk's expertise of the politics and economy didn't exceed average level of common source side, meaning he didn't have any, same as Zelensky.
Люди с голосами, похожими на голоса Гончарука, Рожковой, Маркаровой, Милованова и других чиновников, обсуждают, как пояснить Зеленскому ряд сложных экономических вопросов. И это, назовем их, компания чиновников, пытаются договориться, как объяснить президенту, почему укрепляется гривна, откуда образовалась дыра в бюджете и много других экономических вопросов. Человек с голосом, похожим на голос нашего премьера, отмечает, что у Зеленского очень примитивные представления об экономических процессах и туман в голове, который нужно развеять. Но при этом якобы премьер добавил, что он полный профан в экономике. У многих после прослушивания картина сложилась так себе.
But it all was worse, much worse. Nationalism was deeply integrated into the government system and rooted in the nationalist narrative. New team was helpless to do anything. Some even zigged a little. It became obvious when the main curator of the Nazi volunteer battalions, Avakov, kept his internal affairs minister chair, despite all Zelensky's promises for total changes.
Чи потужний він міністр? Так.
And so Zelensky, this goofy, bound to save Ukraine with all his beliefs in greater good. But it happens that without total reassembly of the state and open confrontation with black shirts, there can be no salvation. Zelensky was missing any strong team support for any of these challenges.
Я йому пропонував, давай змінимо законодавство, давай на часи боротьби з контрабандою, змінимо законодавство так, щоб наші військові, безпека, служба безпеки, давай окремі отряди зробимо, військові, які зайдуть на митниць і зупинять повністю контрабанду. Ні, ми все зробимо самі. Результат – мінус десятки мільярдів гривень по року. Нема наповнення бюджету.
He could lean neither on civil society nor even on his close surrounding. Zelensky's first step shown that his initial intention was to achieve peace, take his place in history as a savior of Ukraine, earn the monument and love of the people. At the beginning of his term he said that he wants to comply with the Minsk Accords and make an agreement with disloyal part of population.
Идти по пунктам выполнения всех минских договоренностей для того, чтобы наконец у нас был мир.
But it was practically impossible. Nazis met his calls to lay down weapons with a sarcastic grins.
А чего вы смеетесь?
What are you gonna do?
Я тебе просто советую, чуть научись уважать людей и видеть, кто перед тобой.
This confrontation peaked when Zelensky went to the front lines and faced haze of terrorists.
Я ж не лох. Я тебе пришел и сказал, оружие уберите. А ты меня не переводи на акции.
Nazis only laughed and it ended with nothing. By the end of the first year of the term, all Zelensky's hopes to become a savior of Ukraine crumbled. Russian establishment supported peace initiatives, made a large prisoners exchange, resumed negotiations. Zelensky tried his best to pull battalions back from the front line, see that famous video above. But it all had a large barrier. Nationalists played a huge role in the state administration, media and on the national narrative overall.
Слава Україні!
There is no need to tell all Minsk Accord story now, however let's recall its core. Ukraine was obliged to provide a political reform which would reintegrate rebel republics' people back to the national political life. After that Russia had to push LDPR back to the Ukraine. And as you can see, no matter how far you are pulling troops back from the front line, there is no territory regaining if there is no political reforms, which Zelensky had no power to provide. Such reforms would throw Nazis back to marginal state, making them an obstruction and bound lots of them to the fate of Sashko-Billy. That couldn't happen. Soon the office square was swarmed by blackshirts who demanded to prevent any reforms, calling it capitulation and red line.
Ми тут, щоб завадити капітуляції та зберегти Україну. Вітаємо учасників маршу у Києві та закликаємо патріотів до спільної боротьби. Долучайтесь, побратими. Слава нації! Ні капітуляції!
Poroshenko quickly joined the protests as he was realizing Nazis' role much better than Zelensky.
Гасло 2. Перше гасло – ні капітуляції. І друге гасло – слава Україні!
So if you can't defeat it, lead it.
Я не задоволений всіма пунктами. Ми по-різному відносимось до порядку виконання тих чи інших пунктів Мінських угод.
Zelensky was a weak politician from the start. He tried to go against the flow, but was simply flushed away. Sorosite, anti-corruption bodies, and NKOs controlled by foreigners seized power. SBU and Internal Affairs each played its own games. The street, represented by patriotic organizations, volunteers, and Ukrainian Freikorps, gained more influence.
Наші двері завжди відкриті.
Fortunately, country was saved by Attorney's Office and the courts. Brave people didn't went over with all this lawlessness. They found that parliament violated various constitutional laws, trialed and dispersed the scum. Saved the nation.
Поверил. Ну и бредятина.
Year after year, judges had less and less power to do something.
29 октября 2020 года президент Зеленский вносит законопроект о прекращении полномочий тех судей Конституционного суда. Это реакция на их резонансное решение. Они признали неконституционными ряд статей антикоррупционного законодательства.
Lawyers and their law still prevented defenders to rob to protect the country. Court demonstration became ordinary. How it could be worse? Well, it always can be worse. Eventually it became so bad that Zelensky felt threat even from those who was branded as pro-Russian in the Ukrainian media. It could be expected. Neither patriotic parties nor populists like Zelensky couldn't bring peace. Only pro-Russian parties left. No matter how propaganda bashed them, peace was still desirable for the population. These feeble, impotent organizations like OPFL started threatening Zelensky's leadership, gaining high ratings among parties. Pro-Russian leaders sold themselves to Ukrainian businesses, Kremlin mediators. Situation worsened so much that even those pasteboard parties became a threat. Radical measures needed to keep power outside the law. But Zelensky wasn't eager to hold responsibility and became a scapegoat if anything goes wrong. What to do? Make responsibility collective. Pass decisions by collective body, not personally. That's how National Security and Defense Council became main governing body in Ukraine. At February 2021, disregarding any law, skipping any investigation or prosecution, NSDC locked down all opposition sources and imposed sanctions against leaders of the main opposition party, Medvedchuk and his wife Marchenko. Again, nationalists proved their convenience. Thus, office used black shirts to obliterate another opposition party, Sharis. Stormers caught random person who bear name Shari and forced him to sue Shari's party for illegal surname use.
На тебя выходит Национальный корпус Украины. Тупо вылавливать. Ты знаешь, с каким мы вопросом к тебе пришли? Мы не полиция, не служба безопасности Украины, мы Национальный корпус Украины. Говорит, тебе могут светить угрозы, а то иногда может быть личная расправа. То есть не тебе, а, например, твоей семье.
Negotiating with Minister of Justice deputy, representative of the office offered to use Nats course for pressure on judges during Shari's party trials.
Тем более Nats корпус мы можем их привлечь на свою сторону. В плане влияния на суд и все остальное. Правильно?
Какого влияния на суд? Но...
Я это не говорил.
Black shirts disrupted opposition speeches, gang battered, and attempted murders. Opposing government course wasn't dangerous anymore. It was impossible.
Сьогодні ми звертаємось з вимогами до Служби безпеки України та Міністерства юстиції, щоб вони провели всі необхідні процедури для того, щоб зняти з реєстрації партії «Опозиційна платформа за життя» та партія Шарія.
After such campaign, state considered patriotic citizens' opinion and openly joined the show. At May 2021, OPFL leader Medvedchuk and opposition channel's owner Kozak found themselves legally prosecuted. Medvedchuk was house arrested and Kozak joined the wanted list. So, even most moderate politicians supporting Minsk Accord's fulfillment and peaceful coexistence with Russia were thrown from legal political field. Zelensky dramatically enforced his rule, turning Nazi leader from being Nazi's victim. True and only point of view was forced to be accepted by common people below. Totalitarianism have won. However, as we can see, its Ukrainian version differs from classics. Ukraine is not Third Reich. Though people tend to see similarities between SBU and Gestapo, Ukrainian intelligence and enforcement act different. What's the difference? You don't need a party to let them follow the party. To understand how Ukrainian version of totalitarianism is working, we must understand that statehood of Ukraine is rather weak. So weak that they can't make themselves their own Gestapo. They just don't have administrative resource for proper surveillance of their own population. Most probably nobody ever planned to establish a totalitarian state. It just shitted itself. But how such system could work then? Easy. If the state is disabled, but repressions to support its life still needed, you have to make society attack itself. Step 1. Paint an image of the enemy, domestic separatist in our case. Step 2. Create advantages and downsides connected with an enemy image. The more you fit in this image, the more difficult to live in this society. And the less you fit, the easier. And if you're diligent enough, society will fall into self-censorship. People will start afraid to commit even thought crime. Not out of fear of legal prosecution, just because it complicates life, even if resemblance with the enemy just mental. Pogroms, repressions, stigmatization, fear, those must follow line of domestic separatists. And career success, medals and appraisals must reward true patriot.
Ще раз вас вітаю, вдячний. Слава Україні.
And that's it. State doesn't need lots of resources to support such system. Just some new logs time to time into the bonfire of Ukrainian patriotic society, making examples from Moskals and separatists. Then you say, fetch. The Nazis already knows who to bash, as well as they know that they will go away with it, attacking certain group. And the final step, make society know that the Nazis are unpunishable. Oops, what is that? Definition of terrorism? Policy of fear? No, it's nothing like that. It just happened, it's not us. Then it's done. Image of an enemy. Treats for chasing him. Fear to be like him. Self-censorship. People will do everything to follow the right course. State has its hands clean. Just a little piece of propaganda required. Security Service of Ukraine became the main fire starter. Take a look at their media and you'll see how it works. Lots of publications like some old man with USSR flag, with the header "Evil Separatists" was caught. Thank God Ukraine is safe. Looks stupid but works. The yes sees how does public enemy looks like. Crazy old fool with the Soviet flag. A word about personal data protection. Even official SBU publications barely covers faces of detainees. But even if the audience couldn't see those faces clearly, originals will be posted just few minutes later at Nazi media.
Він щось, ха-ха-ха, я кажу, я тебе щас знайду. Він рже, каже, ти мене по аватарці знайдеш. Я за 20 хвилин знаходжу по цій особі все, де він проживає, там сім'я, діти, що він ніде не працює і так далі. Скидаю йому, де ти живеш, говорю, слухай, давай ти не будеш матюкати військових. Кажу, ну, давай, бо це погано кінчиться. Пройшло 3 місяці, він втік з України, виїхав, і типу, я вже в Берліні. Зараз...
SBU video reports shows trash in pro-Russian undercover groups. Eventually it appears that they get in random people who left any doubtful organization long ago. Not mentioning that those organizations are harmless trifle of 3.5 nobodies. Doesn't matter, the message is sent. Civil society got the portrait of collaborator printed deep in mind. Nazis are convinced. Separatists are everywhere. And this system works. Any victim of even not politically related crime can be branded as separatist. Try and prove the opposite. Ukrainians know that and afraid. For example, Walk in Front of Ukraine members became victims of such SBU policy. In 2022, SBU reported that pro-Russian cell of fake civil organization Walk in Front of Ukraine was grounded in Odessa. In fact, they got one guy who's out of it for a long time. Ukraine is protected. But that's not all. In September 22, SBU forged the case that VFU pays 1,000 hryvnias for hammer and sickle leaflet posting. Although VFU hadn't posted any leaflets in September and didn't pay anything, not mentioning that those leaflets never existed. Actually, you could call that the repressions already, but don't let its pettiness deceive you. Defending Ukraine from separatism is just the top of an iceberg. This policy wasn't conducted just for chasing the disloyal. It was needed to brand us and them, to demonstrate the society who is good to be associated with and what siding is perilous for you in this absent country. The guy next door said something unsuitable for national narrative. Alright then, this domestic separatist will get it soon. There are groups of fit boys. You can tell them that your neighbor is definitely 100% separatist, and the case will be solved quickly. He'll be caught, beaten, humiliated, brought to precinct or SBU office. And then it all depends on his personal luck. Before and after is the favorite show feature of these gangs. First they show you some before of it, some girl said something wrong about country and the army.
Украина, це, блядь, дно нахуй. Ты откуда, Полтава? Чему Россия краще? Потому что там хотя бы будущее есть. Ну, проколотый, да. Мне 15.
And then it's followed by the after clip, showing her apologizing in tears.
Перед всіма вибачте за те, що я таке сказала. Дуже всі перед всіма вибачаюсь.
This practice affects everyone, no exceptions, despite your age or how popular you are. This year, 19-year-old Nazi backed by SBU threatened 15-year-old anarchist kid who had some miserable channel of 800 subscribers threatened with jail and the pit, and the kid had to stop all his activities. All are equal, but some are more equal than the others. Once little Nazi found himself bros in Natskor or C14. Bros helped the police to get sappers, little Nazi got some connections, and bam, now he's a bit more equal than others. Do whatever you want in the name of Ukraine, of course. However, you can't expect any good thing from official enforcement bodies as well. Most of trials are not public and there are no rights reading for the accused. Threats and tortures in SBU basement are also common now. Everything is quite random. Some are lucky, lawyers managing to defend them or even to pull them out. Some are not, they just vanishing without a trace. Anarchist kid was very lucky. Such stories doesn't always end with public apologize or precinct. Let's recall Severodonetsk OPFL cell story. In short, the group was caught in Kiev, murdered to the last, without any prosecution or trial, to loud applause of Ukrainian civil society. Self-censoring is most important for survival in such society, especially disgusting that at some moment the self-censoring becomes collective. That's how it works. Let's take some group, college faculty or some office where one person doesn't give a damn about the narrative. He's brave, confident, and openly calls things by its names. And the group is agreed, more or less. But society knows, third crime is a crime too. Presence of a single patriot in the group is enough to call out for civil society. And everyone's gonna have some trouble. Everyone now have to justify himself, make excuses. Why this trouble? It's much easier for everyone just to shut the loud guy. If he forgot his self-censoring, he'll be quickly reminded by other students or colleagues. There is an expected side effect, by the way, overall involvement into the politics. Now everyone have to follow the narrative to know how to maintain self-censoring. There is no option to be not into politics guy. You are obliged to support any regime actions fiercely. Constantly prove to your surrounding that you are one of ours.
З розумінням! Ми не просто так пи***ли цей весь час російською! Не від ні ділать! Це дуже важка травма для нашого регіону! Будь ласка!
Politics steps forward from the background. The man lives for common cause. For Ukraine it's independence, territorial integrity and European civilization path. Kid TV shows presents ABC where schools are teaching history of Ukrainian fight for survival. Universities are pushing to donate for army. Teachers and professors are obliged to repeat axioms of orcs, Moskals and inevitable Russian defeat over and over again. Otherwise it's a big chance to be fired or face civil society. One single patriotic moron is enough to make a whole faculty to know its place, cause he may call some friends.
Щойно вийшов від керівництва університету Мечникова в Одесі, де спілкувалися з приводу їхнього викладача Олександра Пригарина. Цей чорт є сепаратистом, він публікує різний антиукраїнський матеріал, заборонену символіку комуністичну. Це робить не вперше, чомусь його ніхто не помічав, він далі працював з нашими студентами. Ми дійшли згоди, що його потрібно звільняти, і цей негідник більше не буде працювати в сфері освіти, я думаю, не тільки в Мечникова, а й взагалі в Україні.
Ukrainian businesses follows narrative as well. Metro retail network hanging billboards with Ukraine for Ukrainians. We are holding humanitarian front. Monobank set universal credit card skin Russian worship go fuck yourself, deleted Russian language and froze accounts for all who remains at Russian-controlled territories. And of course allowed idiocy. Bucha kombucha cans which working for victory and victory wins vodka. Ghost of Kiev coffee in Lvov. Farmers coffee pack image showing broken Russian tanks tagged by tractors. Fight Club posters with characters' faces replaced by mugs of the cabinet as President Coffee ad. Same effect at the church. Even priests can't be neutral. Forbidden. Take Ukrainian Orthodox Church for example. Realizing what consequences their connection with Patriarchy of Moscow might have, high clergy made the vow of silence. Searches began. All media immediately burst with images of pro-Russian symbolics found in monasteries and churches. Same trick as they did with red flag old farts. Sure, every priest just dreaming to hide Russian flag somewhere.
Тому, хто хоче долучитися до святої інквізиції проти московських бесів в лаврясах, ви буде в описі, пишіть, це буде крепко, вам сподобається результат.
Civil society got the point. Provocations, bullying, attacks on clergy as establishment of the new normality. In the end, legal ban and raider seizure of UO churches along with pogroms. It all might look like some thorough plan, but it's not. Worst of Ukrainian totalitarianism, it's chaotic and hard to control. Ukraine didn't build anarcho-totalitarianism on purpose. Everyone just tried to make profit. And it led to creation of cruel but rather mindless system. Surprisingly, anarchy made Ukrainian totalitarianism even stronger. Normally, system control works via government channels. It could be seen and noticed. Thanks to that, line between your interests and interests of the others could be seen. But in this system, when channels unseen, it seems like there is no pressure. You just act as everyone. Something happened? Pogrom? Kidnapping? State didn't do that. Perhaps you've got something wrong. You got the jacket with this patch. And then the Nazis got you, eager to bash the commie. The government never harassed you. It's just some experienced guys informed you that you did something wrong. Politology classics said that the very idea of society are built on voluntarily refusal of some liberties. Otherwise every individual would be even less free under the anarchy. Ukraine proved that perfectly. Forgive us, Bakunin. Alas, there is only two ways for those who live in totalitarian atmosphere. Accept madness or collapse under pressure. Ukrainian totalitarianism phenomenon mirrors whole Ukraine. The state is impotent, its role is miserable even in providing terror. Society doesn't feel even a bit of European freedom Maidan stood for. Contrary, it exists in the atmosphere of hate and distrust, under the threat of both government make an example, repressions, and chaotic pressure of criminal civil society. This situation is hardly realized by majority, except those rare moments when another blogger revealed a piece of power abuse by TCK, got himself on Peacemaker, and ran to Poland for his life.
Але, на жаль, сталися такі обставини, що змушений виїхати.
And the most important, that it's all completely useless. In 2022, under the shock of full-scale war outbreak, some believed that all this inhuman system has some sense and reason, at least. Like hard, painful, but we are able to protect ourselves against Putin's genocide, protect national interests and Ukrainian greatness, and something else. But no, it all was a delusion, and it all was useless, cruel and completely in vain. Ukrainians are just throwing themselves from the cliff, being merely the tools of power play. In a way, Ukrainian society resembles Latin American military dictatorships of 60s, 70s. Chile, Argentina, Salvador, Honduras, juntas formed an official repressing machine in similar way, and were fetching paramilitary guerrillas after the opposition. The birth of infamous death squadrons. But Ukrainian phenomenon is unique. It formed chaotically. Yes, this condition was used by EU, US and Poland. However, blaming the outsiders doesn't change the fact that Ukrainian totalitarianism is rooted in local grounds, and the foreign influence was nothing more but one of many factors. Sometimes sense raised its voice in Ukraine. Oh, how come? What's going on? What lustrations? What harassment of the families? Some tried to reset the system to its defaults, like during 2021 attempt when Avakov resigned and the state tried to cleanse internal affairs from civil society. But as the means cannot be reversed through the meat grinder, this Ukraine already couldn't be saved. Now you realize how did it all come to this. It was not just about Americans, Europeans or Putin. Everyone played its role. But all this terrible outcome grown on the foundation of Ukrainian society itself. Step by step, multiple events led to split and collapse of Ukrainian state and then of Ukrainian society. What a catastrophe. Now we all know about peace negotiations in Belarus and Turkey in 2022. Russia demanded recognition of controlled territories, neutral status of Ukraine, providing denazification laws and something else. But it was a wrong approach. Liberals, leftists, patriots, nationalists all keep arguing about relevance of those demands for Zelensky. Had Ukraine to agree on that? Does such borders revision acceptable? Is it surrender of democracy to dictatorship? Nonsense. Ukraine technically was unable to fulfill the terms. That's what must be said. Cats don't fly, stones doesn't float, Ukraine can't divert itself from suicide course. That's simple. While Medinsky and Putin tried to understand what is acceptable for Ukraine and what's not, they overlooked a crucial point. What's happening with Ukrainian society? In what condition this society is? What about the hochhols? Putin's SVO opening speech shows that he and his advisors were certain that Ukrainian society is fine and the regime is the problem. And one solid push on Ukrainian state will solve this. Ukrainians even will be grateful. Finally, Zelia Crooks with their 17% rating got booted. Now we'll leave.
Еще раз обращаюсь к военнослужащим вооруженных сил Украины. Не позволяйте неонацистам и бендеровцам использовать ваших детей, ваших жен и стариков в качестве живого щита. Берите власть в свои руки. Похоже, нам с вами будет легче договориться, чем с этой шайкой наркоманов и неонацистов, которая засела в Киеве и взяла в заложники весь украинский народ.
But neither AFU command nor even the Nazis was an issue. Normality was the issue. What was considered normal in Ukraine? Ukrainian totalitarian society didn't accept any other normality, but 1,000-year struggle against Russia, striving to EU at any cost, and fighting domestic separatism. Russian leaders assumed that with laws changed, Ukrainian society will come back to normal life. And it's true, it would. But it would be Ukrainian normal life. Normality is not static. In different countries and ages it's also different. Russian European normality differs from Ukrainian. Here in Ukraine, creating is condemned and things that would be seemed pure madness elsewhere supported.
Прошу 20% з міського бюджету на Збройні Сили України.
Гроші на ЗСУ! Гроші на ЗСУ! Гроші на ЗСУ!
Are there people in Ukraine who won't just live, work and create, who doesn't want to build all their lives on war with Russia? Of course there are, but Ukrainian society made effective tools for their suppression. They can't change anything, they can't even talk. Only capable state could fix it. The state able to tame the mad and support those who's able to create something. Shift normality. People must realize that being an activist is a slope to the gutter, and walking, creating, road to success. What am I talking? Stop the civil society at least, which feeding itself by criminal means. And how such capable state might appear? By Istanbul Accords with Putin? Via promise to be goodies? Zelensky refused to sign accords he was unable to comply. West, chasing its interests, promised weapons. Ukrainian society, 8 years packed with "cause Putin will attack, that's why," got proof for old Nazi garbage. So they were right, join FU. And it rolled. With war, Ukrainian totalitarianism reached its apex. Civil society got millions of firearms in its hands. Financial and media resources of all those stormtrooping dramatically grew. What neutrality or Russian language status could be discussed here? Want a bullet? Self-remedy is impossible now. Ukrainian society must be reconstructed. There were examples in history when society managed to recreate statehood and save itself, like Soviet Union after collapse of the monarchy and civil war, or China after half-century-long turmoil. This outcome is unlikable for Ukraine, not with this demography, not in current geopolitics, not with such split in society. It's impossible.
Слушайте, окажите мне услугу, отстаньте от меня, пожалуйста.
Ви теж зробіть мені послугу. Перестаньте говорити мовою людей, які мене вбивають.
Who will re-establish Ukrainian society? Nobody knows. And that's not so important. Something will be rebuilt within the Russian system, something within the other, under EU, or else. It's unpredictable. One thing certain. If you listen this from Ukraine, remember, your only goal is to survive. Stand down. Save your mind. It's not much left to wait. Totalitarianism must be fed. There must be very more funds, so people would like to support the system. It'll crumble without them. So hold a little bit longer. The day will come when people of sense will not be minority anymore. They'll soothe their pain, tend their wounds, cope with their loss, and allow themselves a piece of happiness.